It was supposed to be a quick drive, just a few hours along a lonely stretch of desert highway. Jake and his girlfriend, Mia, were headed to a music festival in the middle of nowhere, eager to escape their city lives for a weekend of fun. The sun was setting as they sped along the empty road, the sky painted in deep shades of red and purple. They hadn't seen another car for miles when Jake noticed a figure up ahead, standing by the side of the road, thumb outstretched. The man was tall and thin, his clothes dusty and worn. Something about him made Jake uneasy, but Mia, ever the kind-hearted one, insisted they stop. "He could be stranded," she said. "We can't just leave him out here." Reluctantly, Jake pulled over, and the man approached the car. Up close, he looked even more haggard, with hollow eyes that seemed to stare right through them. He introduced himself as Tom, explaining that his car had broken down a few miles back and he was trying to get to the nearest town. Jake didn't like the idea, but he couldn't refuse Mia. Tom climbed into the back seat, and they set off again, the atmosphere in the car growing tense. Tom didn't say much, just stared out the window as the night closed in around them. About half an hour later, Jake noticed something odd in the rearview mirror. Tom wasn't casting a reflection. His heart skipped a beat, and he shot a glance at Mia, who was oblivious, chatting away. Jake tried to stay calm, but the air in the car felt thick and suffocating, and the hairs on the back of his neck stood on end. Suddenly, Tom spoke, his voice low and gravelly. "You should have kept driving." Jake's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "What do you mean?" Tom leaned forward, his breath cold against Jake's ear. "You shouldn't have stopped." Before Jake could react, the car began to swerve. The steering wheel felt like it was fighting him, pulling toward the edge of the road. Mia screamed as the car veered off, skidding to a stop in the dirt. Jake whipped around, but the back seat was empty. Tom was gone. There were no footprints, no sign that anyone had ever been there. Shaking, they drove the rest of the way in silence, too scared to speak. When they finally reached the festival, they learned the truth. A man named Tom had died on that stretch of highway years ago, killed in a car crash after he tried to hitchhike his way to safety. They had picked up his ghost. Megan and her two friends, Carla and Liz, were halfway through their cross-country road trip when they realized they were running low on gas. The GPS had been acting up for miles, leaving them unsure of their exact location. It was just past midnight, and the only light came from their headlights cutting through the darkness. Finally, they spotted a flickering neon sign up ahead at a gas station, isolated in the middle of nowhere. Relieved, they pulled in, but something about the place felt off. The windows of the station were boarded up, and the gas pumps looked old and rusted, as if they hadn't been used in years. Carla volunteered to go inside and pay, but when she pushed open the door, a wave of cold air rushed out. The inside of the station was dark, the shelves empty and covered in dust. It was like stepping into a place that time had forgotten. "Hello?" she called out, her voice echoing eerily. No answer. She turned to leave, but the door slammed shut behind her. Panic set in as she tried to open it, but it wouldn't budge. The air grew colder, and Carla could see her breath misting in front of her. Suddenly, a low hum filled the room, growing louder and more insistent. "Carla, are you okay?" Megan's voice came through the door, muffled and distant. "I'm stuck. The door won't open." Outside, Megan and Liz tried to force the door open, but it was as if something was holding it shut. Inside, the hum grew deafening, and the lights began to flicker. Carla's heart pounded in her chest as she looked around frantically for another way out. That's when she saw them, faint shapes, moving in the darkness. At first, She thought it was her eyes playing tricks on her, but then they moved closer, their forms becoming clearer. They were figures, human-like but twisted, their faces pale and gaunt, their eyes hollow. They reached out to her with long, skeletal fingers, their mouths opening in silent screams. Carla screamed and backed away, but there was nowhere to go. The figures closed in, their cold hands brushing against her skin. Just as she thought she was lost, the door flew open, and Megan and Liz pulled her out. They didn't stop to look back as they ran to the car, jumping in and speeding away. As they left the gas station behind, the neon sign flickered one last time before plunging into darkness. The next day, they asked a local about the gas station. The old man they spoke to looked at them in shock. "That place burned down 20 years ago," he said. "Nobody's been there since." Sam and Alex had been on the road for hours, driving through a dense forest in the middle of the night. They were headed to a remote cabin for a weekend of relaxation, but the trip had taken longer than expected, and they were tired and eager to arrive. The road was narrow and winding, with trees pressing in on both sides. There was no cell service, and they hadn't seen another car for miles. The only sound was the hum of their engine and the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. As they rounded a sharp curve, headlights appeared in the rearview mirror, bright, blinding lights that seemed to come out of nowhere. A massive truck was bearing down on them, its horn blaring. Sam, who was driving, swerved to avoid it, but the truck kept coming, closer and closer. "What the hell is this guy doing?" Alex shouted. Sam tried to speed up, but the truck matched their pace, its lights burning into their eyes. The road ahead was a blur, and Sam struggled to keep the car on the road as the truck loomed larger in the mirror. Suddenly, the truck rammed into them, sending their car skidding across the road. Sam fought to regain control, his heart pounding. The truck backed off for a moment, then surged forward again, its horn blaring like a scream in the night. Sam floored the gas pedal, the car hurtling down the road at breakneck speed. But no matter how fast they went, the truck stayed right on their tail, its headlights so close that it felt like they were inside the car. Just when it seemed like they were about to be run off the road, the truck vanished. One moment it was there, the next it was gone, as if it had never existed. Sam and Alex were left in stunned silence, the road ahead empty and dark. When they finally reached the cabin, they were too shaken to talk about what had happened. The next day, they asked the locals about the road. The response sent chills down their spines. "People have seen that truck before," one of the locals said. "They say it's the ghost of a trucker who died on that road years ago. He was trying to avoid a collision, but he swerved off the road and was killed. Now, he's doomed to haunt that stretch of highway, chasing down anyone who crosses his path."